Sign Picker Season 2. Hey, what's up? It's Steve, aka The Sign Picker, back with Season 2 of Sign Language. And today, I'm going to show you a sign that I picked up a couple of months ago. It's a Lisle Street sign. The reason it's named Lisle is because it was manufactured by the Lisle Sign Corporation, which originally started in Lisle, Minnesota, but then shortly after moved to the Minneapolis area. The Lisle Sign Company has been around for a really long time. They started in the early 30s. They were one of the first sign companies to ever work with 3M for reflective sheeting, and they were really one of the pioneers for stamped and embossed street signage, just like the one that you see here. This is a Lisle sign, I could tell, because, well, number one, on the bottom of the slip fit, it's got the words Lisle Sign Company embossed around there. I can also tell it's a Lisle sign because of the hardware and the finial on top. These signs appeared all over the Midwest. I'm not too familiar with the far west coast or the far east coast, but I know around here there were quite a few of these signs installed to tell you which street and cross street you were on. I also know because a Lisle street sign was at the corner of the house I grew up in Maryville, Indiana. That sign is now part of my collection. That was the first Lisle street sign that I ever had. I'm normally not a fan of street signs that show the cross streets just because they're big, they take up a lot of room, and there are literally millions of them to be had. The only reason I really have some is just because they were given to me, or the ones that I do have, or the ones that I go after, are ones that have some sort of personal meaning to me, like the one that was on the street corner that I grew up in. This one is an intersection of the county that I live in now. It was once a very middle of nowhere intersection. It's kind of out in the country now. It's Garmin and Tonkel Road. It's on the north side of Allen County, where Fort Wayne, Indiana is located. This style of Lisle street sign is what Allen County had posted for all of its streets throughout the county. Today, the street signs in Allen County are mostly green with white letters, reflective sheeting, everything that you would expect from today's standard of street signs. Back then, these signs were black on white. They had 90-degree square edges, and they also had these plates on top that were mounted, which would tell you what address block you were in. I love these little flags that sit on top. The reason I got this is not only because it has some geographic relevance to me, but it's also the first street sign that I have, Lisle sign or otherwise, that have these flags on top. For me, this was a Facebook Marketplace find, and the cool thing about it is about 6 months before I got this, it was listed and somebody had beat me to it. And I was kind of disappointed. Then it got listed again, so the person who purchased it the first time decided that he didn't have any use for it. Signs like this are kind of rare to find intact like this. Oftentimes when people get them, because they're so big and bulky, a lot of times you'll be able to find the individual panels, but who knows what happens to the hardware, the finial, the slip fit, all of that is gone. This is obviously a lot more manageable, and I'm not sure this might be a Lisle sign just based on the font. That's really similar to the font of the one that was on the corner of the house I grew up in. But oftentimes the hardware is gone, and then you have an incomplete sign. So if you think of this in terms of individual panels, like this country club sign, this sign actually has 2, 4, 6, this has 7, but there would be 8. This flag on this side is missing, who knows where it is. But if you broke this all apart, this would be 8 individual signs, and a lot of dealers will break this up and part it out and sell it individually, maybe for $20 a panel, and then just get rid of the hardware. So I was really happy to find one that was in this condition. Even though it's missing one flag, the rest of the sign is intact. So let's take a look at the difference between that Lisle sign and some of the other Lisle signs I have in my collection. This sign has 90-degree angles, except for the flags on top for the addresses, which are obviously rounded apart. But the street name panels themselves are 90 degrees, and then they're held together here on the edge with these brackets. And actually, if you were to break these signs apart, one of the signs, this might be one, I'm not sure, I think I could see it in here. You can look real close, but this actually comes around. The sign itself is an L, and then it's held on with this bracket. And then these address flags are just held on with flathead screws. And then everything kind of slips into these this hardware that holds it together. And then the way it's mounted on the post is on this slip fit, and then there's a hex screw that goes in there. And it's really tough to get those hex screws out now because they've been so rusted from the elements. Now if you compare that to this Lisle Street sign, this is one that also came out of Indiana and needs to be cleaned a little bit. But it's black background, white text, and you can see that the edges are much more rounded than the square one that Garmin Road has. Other than that, the hardware is the same, finial on top is the same slip fit at the bottom, but it's just a little bit different of a design. What's great about the one from my neighborhood is it actually comes on the original post that it was mounted on in the corner of my yard. I was able to get these when the city was going through and replacing all these signs. Obviously that one's really hard to read. A lot of the paint has faded with the elements. So if I had to part with all of my signs and keep just one, this would have to be in the top 5 that I would hang on to. But you can see the panels themselves are a little more, they're not quite 90 degrees, but they're pretty square. And even the typeface is a little more rigid. It actually resembles some of the older typefaces on signs that you would see in the 30s and 40s. As those signs evolved, the typeface became a little more round and a little less rigid. And here is another few panels that I have in my collection. I'm not sure if these are Lisle or not, but you can see, this is an example of these signs being parted out. Here's the back of them, just so you can see the notches that hold it together on the bracket. And of course, the back of an embossed sign is always very, very cool. So those are the Lisle Street signs in my collection. If you want to see more of my collection, make sure you follow me on Instagram at SignPicker or on Facebook. I'm there as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well here on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video.